To technical writing. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about cover letters. So besides your resume, the cover letter is the other super important document when you're applying for jobs. Typically, an interviewer or hiring manager will look at your resume first. Then, if your resume is up to muster, they will look at your cover letter. Now, then, occasionally the cover letter is read first and then the resume, but in my experience, it's more typical. Resume is kind of the first trial, then your cover letter is the second trial. And speaking of resumes, here's a quick refresher on the key parts of a resume. So remember that you foreground education and experience first and foremost, skills, abilities, awards, extras, those all go near the bottom of your resume. And of course, your contact information is at the very top. Okay, so the good news when dealing with a cover letter is that there is a standard format you can follow for any cover letter when you're applying to any job, and that is 4 paragraphs. Also, quick note here, cover letters are a traditional business letter format, so when you are writing Dear So-and-so, you will use a colon, not a comma, and you will not indent your paragraphs. So if you need a little more visualization, just Google business letters and you'll see what I mean. All right, so the first paragraph. This should be a pretty succinct paragraph. You really want to capture the attention of a hiring manager or a potential interviewer here. So paragraph 1 should answer why you are applying for this specific job. Now then, let me caution you here. In this first paragraph, you want to use reader-centered language. And what I mean there is you are trying to persuade the hiring manager, HR person, or whoever is reading your cover letter that you are the ideal candidate for their company and for the job in question. Okay, so this is meant to be persuasive. A cover letter is not an opportunity for you to talk about how you have a degree in mechanical engineering and you want to make money and this is an entry-level mechanical engineering job, so they should hire you. That's not going to work very well. So in that first paragraph, really sell yourself. Show that you've researched the company a little bit, okay? Tell your reader why you want to work for this company in particular. So what are some things they're doing right now that are of interest to you? Then paragraphs 2 and 3 should display specific, carefully chosen instances of things you've done, whether it's work or school related, that show why you should get hired. Now then, there is a specific formula I'm going to give you all a little later in this video that will allow you to do exactly what I just mentioned. So you really want strong illustrative stories here that make you stand out, but also really show you performing. Typically, one paragraph will show you performing some sort of hard skill, and the next paragraph will show you performing some sort of soft skill. Now then, that is really dependent on the job. If you're applying to a civil engineering job, you may go for 2 paragraphs that really show you are a civil engineer and you know what you're doing. The job ad is where you want to go to figure that out. Now then, paragraph 4 should round everything off nicely. The key with this paragraph is to strike a balance between being too pushy and too passive, right? So thank your reader for their consideration. Tell them when you're available. So if you prefer for someone to email you, put your email in there and tell them they can contact you there. If you prefer them to call you, put your phone number in again and give them a time frame. Don't just say you can call me at whatever your phone number is. Maybe say during the daytime or in the evening, or you can email me anytime. Just try to strike that balance between being too pushy and too passive. Okay, so I'm going to run through a list of quick tips for the cover letter. Now then, let's start by looking at the 2 examples listed on the PowerPoint here. Now then, in my experience, a lot of writers will go for this sentence I've labeled as wrong in their cover letters. So I wanted to work for your company since I was little. This would be my dream job, and it would mean so much to me if you would grant me an interview. Okay, there are a couple of things wrong here, or things that could be improved on. We won't say they're wrong, but things that could use some work. So, first of all, the tone of this unfortunately just sounds a little too excited. Okay, so this person sounds like a student, frankly, sounds like someone very young who probably has not written many cover letters or hasn't had many interviews. And also, it's very vague. And just a quick note here, anytime you say, I wanted to work for your company since I was little, you're making your reader think of you as someone who is really young. And you may be really young. You may be 21, 22, 23, however old you are. But the reality is, in the cover letter, you want to be formal and you want to look professional. And sounding juvenile, even if you are actually a young person, is not really the route you want to go here. Okay, so let's look at this other example. I was excited to find this open position because I've been following your company since its startup phase. My thorough understanding of your company's background and mission means that I can jump in and make contributions to your marketing team right away. So this is an excellent example of what you want to be doing in a cover letter. So we mentioned the startup phase. This person has obviously researched the company. One thing I would say, instead of just saying your company's background and mission, it never hurts to throw in a company's mission in your cover letter, right? Throw that in there if you can. And then you have someone who's confidently saying not just that they would like to join the company, but they can jump in and actually be a productive member. Okay, so some other quick skills I'm going to go over. The most important thing is that you want to show what you're capable of. Don't just tell someone that you can work in AutoCAD. You're an expert with AutoCAD. Give a specific example that shows you doing what you say you can do. Okay, so use that illustrative language. Really show yourself doing something. Build a picture. Okay, so just like with your resume, you're trying to build a picture here. Showcase a variety of skills. Okay, so again, I can't emphasize enough in the cover letter, you want to try to throw out your hard and soft skills unless you got a job ad that specifically asks for one type of skill over the other. Next, don't over-focus on your education if you're newly graduated. So this one's difficult, especially for those of you that are in your junior, senior year, and maybe at this point in time, your educational experiences are a lot more fleshed out than your work experiences. That is okay. And frankly, if you're applying for a job, and let's say it is an entry-level job, the person reading your cover letter expects that. They kind of expect that might be where you're at. However, what you can do is try to balance your education and experience. And if you can, try to focus on your work experience slightly more. But let's say your education is what's really built up for you at this point. So what you want to do is don't just leave it in your cover letter as I've been studying aerospace engineering for 4 years and I've done these things in my classes, or I did this in capstone. That's all great information, but in the cover letter, make sure you then connect that to, okay, this is what I did in my capstone class, this was my project. Now then, the skill set I gained from that project is X. Here's how that skill set is going to work for this position. Okay, so don't just leave it at education. Connect it to the job that you're applying for. Right, next, don't apologize or make excuses for skills you don't have, a lack of experience, a spotty track record, a low GPA. Never get into negatives in your cover letter. Okay, just don't. Keep it positive. All right, if you know someone currently working for the company, consider naming them. That's not a bad idea. So if you meet a recruiter at a career fair or something like that, name dropping them in your cover letter isn't a bad idea. Okay, so here's the hard thing with cover letters. You do want to sound formal because you want to sound professional, That's what you're going for. But you want to be wary of using too much formality. So you don't want to sound stiff in your cover letter. So what you want, and what I know full well is a hard thing to ask for, is a professional sounding cover letter that has enough personality in it. I can tell your cover letter versus the 19 other cover letters I'm going to be reading. Okay, so I should be able to tell, okay, this is this student who wrote this. I can tell that because of this. Okay, as always, use numbers. Use numbers, they're illustrative. So don't say something like, I have extensive experience in X. Okay, is extensive experience 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it a decade? Quantify. Always, always quantify. Alrighty. Watch your adverbs. Okay, so watch your adverbs and your exclamation points. I know that's a weird tip to give, but overusing exclamation points and adverbs can make you sound like a try-hard, to be frank. So if you were to write, I'm excitedly applying for this job, exclamation point, or I'm absolutely delighted for the opportunity, exclamation point. That's just ooh. All right, so don't do that. Cut the fluff. You don't need any fluff in your cover letter. Be descriptive yet concise. Okay, so this is the key of any technical writing. You are descriptive yet concise. Sounds oxymoronic, it kind of is, but once you get the feel for it, it's pretty doable. A big tip I would give here, mimic your company's voice or tone if you can. Okay, so one way to do this is, like I mentioned earlier, if there's a company mission or a company motto, put that in the cover letter somewhere. Engage with that a little bit. Really research the company's website and figure out how they sound and what their image is. And build a picture of yourself matching that image and using that sound. And also, big thing here, two big last things. Don't worry about bragging, okay? Some people get a little nervous about cover letters because they feel like they are being arrogant or overly braggy. It is more than okay to talk about yourself in a positive light, okay? That's what's going to get you a job interview. And as always, just show what you're talking about. Don't just say you can do all of these things. Show yourself doing them, and you'll be good. The last thing I would say, this sounds like a small thing, but it's actually something people forget quite a bit, and it's super important. Edit. Edit your cover letter. In fact, edit every document you turn in this class carefully, but especially when you're applying for a job. Edit your cover letter. Have someone else read over your cover letter and make sure you didn't miss something. Okay, moving on. So some common cover letter mistakes. Too much or too little. Again, you've got to strike a balance here. You want to build a picture of yourself as a success, but you still want to be scannable and concise. So work on that, okay? One way to do that is to make sure you don't have fluff in there. And once we get to the formula for your 2 middle paragraphs, it'll help you a little more as far as striking a balance between too much and too little. Don't start with anything negative, and don't have anything negative throughout your cover letter, period. Just don't do it. Do not regurgitate your resume. Okay, so the cover letter should be separate from the resume. If anything, you're picking a couple of skills off of your resume and you're expanding on them in your cover letter. All right, so the cover letter should tell a story and it should paint a picture of you doing something successfully. Also, you have to customize your cover letters for job ads. You cannot just have a standard cover letter that you send out to every job. Now then, can you have 2 standard stories you're using in your 2 body paragraphs? Sure, but still make sure you're going back to the specifics of the job ad and adjusting your cover letter to what the job ad is asking for. Okay, so with your 2 middle paragraphs, you want to use something I like to call PEA. So this is point evidence analysis. Now then, when most people write cover letters, They will establish a point, which means I have developed this skill that you're asking for in your job ad. And they will probably have a piece of evidence. So they will cite an example of them doing whatever the skill is. But what's usually lacking, and what you all need to implement in your cover letters as frequently as possible, is analysis. And this is going back to reader-centered language. So you've said, I have this skill. You've given an example of you doing the skill. But how does that transition to what the job is asking for? Okay, that's your analysis. Here's how my experience doing this skill directly translates to your specific company. Therefore, here's why I'm hireable. That's what you're trying to do. I cannot warn you enough. Don't just stick to making a point and providing a piece of evidence. Specifically make connections for your reader and tell them why the skill you've listed makes you hireable for what the job is asking you to do. Okay, and this example you see to your right, this is an example of a portion of a cover letter that is doing exactly what I said is common. This person makes a point, they provide evidence, but there is nothing that tells a reader why the things listed in this paragraph are relevant to what they're hiring for. Okay, folks, so that's all I've got for you today for cover letters. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you next time.